Alright, so let's say you've shot a deer. Congratulations. But it ran off, you never saw it fall. Don't panic, you're just going to have to blood trail that deer to find it. It happens all the time, completely normal. A deer that's shot through the heart or the lungs, it takes seconds to die, but deer are really fast and they can cover, 100 plus yards in just seconds. So what we do is we're going to follow the blood trail straight to our deer and hopefully make a great recovery and have a lot of great meat to share with family and friends. So the first thing you want to do is make a good shot. A good shot, again through the heart or both lungs, makes blood trailing much, much easier, especially when you get a pass through. That's when your arrow enters one side and exits out the other. That leaves an entrance hole and an exit hole for that blood to come out of, and it makes blood trailing way, way easier when you have a pass through. So making a good shot comes down to being patient, being disciplined, making really good choices in your shot placement. We have a bunch of videos on that. You can check those out, as well as practicing before the season and making sure your gear is all dialed in and working well. And again, we have tips on that right here on Bow Hunting 360. Then, once you've made your shot, what you want to do is gather as much information as you can. You want to pay very close attention to where you hit that animal, burn that image into your head, where that arrow disappeared into that deer's body, and then watch its body language. What are you hearing? Watch it run off and mark the location where you last saw it, and especially the direction it was running, because that's going to help you so much when it comes time to actually blood trail. And when you're up in a tree stand or in a ground blind, you want to really pick out that last spot where you saw that animal disappear. Get a good landmark, mark it on a GPS, because once you start blood trailing, it's easy to get disorientated and not be able to see that spot anymore. Some sounds you want to listen for are, first and foremost, did you hear it fall? If you heard it crash, that's great. That deer is down. Good job. When the arrow hits the animal, you want to hear like a hollow thud or thwack. That's that arrow hitting the diaphragm, which is a good sign. If it sounds like a metallic hit and the arrow doesn't pass through, that's usually a sign of hitting a bone. If it sounds like you've hit something really hard, that's a bone hit. That's not the best sign. Now, when you climb down and you want to start blood trailing, usually we want to wait about 30 minutes to an hour, depending on where you hit. Again, if you made a good shot, 30 minutes is plenty of time before you come down the tree. Just let that adrenaline settle, let your nerves settle, call a friend to come help you, and just kind of gather yourself before you start blood trailing. So you get down, what you want to do is you want to look at that area right where you shot that animal, look for blood on the ground, and your arrow. Your arrow is going to be a great clue. Inspect the arrow, see what type of blood is on there. If it's covered and good blood, great sign. If it has some bubbles in the blood, that's a long hit, great, excellent. But some bad things you want to look out for is like a watery blood, as well as like greasiness on the arrow. That's the sign of a muscle hit. Usually if you skim the deer's back or something, you'll get that fat and watery blood on your arrow. Or if you have an arrow that has green bile on it, partially digested food matter, it smells kind of funky, that's a sign of a gut hit. And you want to give that deer plenty of time before you start blood trailing. Okay, so now that you've started your blood trailing, what you want to do is mark the spot where you hit that deer, either with some reflective tape, flagging tape, stick your arrow in the ground, use your GPS to drop pins, mark that spot so you have your starting point, and then follow the blood drops as you find them, and then you're always marking the spot where you've last found blood so you can come back to it. If you kind of get along the trail, you're not finding any blood, come back to that spot where you last found blood, make circles around that area, because sometimes deer like the button hook, they'll circle back around in an area, and that's usually what happens when you've kind of lost the blood trail, is a deer has just changed course. Now, while we're talking about some deer habits during blood trailing, they'll typically take the path of least resistance. They're not going to run up a big hill if they don't have to. A wounded deer, one that's shot in the gut, it's going to look for water. So if you've lost the blood trail, you're pretty sure you've shot a deer through the stomach, you want to go to nearby water sources, look in thick cover, and if you are in a difficult position like that, that's when a blood trailing dog is a huge asset. Especially, definitely make sure if it's legal in your area, but if it is, get on the phone, get a blood trailing dog, and they will find a deer that a human simply can't. Another tip for finding blood, if you're having trouble finding it, is to get low. Let's say you've dropped something small on the ground. You wouldn't stand up here and look down at it. You'd get on the ground, hands and knees, looking for it. Same thing with small drops of blood. Get low, and then blood becomes much easier to see. And of course, your blood trail is going to lead to an animal, so don't forget to look up as you're looking for blood. If you're looking at the ground the whole time, it's easy to miss seeing your animal laying there. So look up from time to time, scan the area, and hopefully you find your animal. Okay, those are the basics of blood trailing. I hope this video was helpful, and we will see you all in the next one.